So we're going to get started. Welcome everybody to Quarantine Break. I'm Kiana, founder of Eat Soccer, and I'm so excited that this afternoon session, Know Your Scent, features our guest, Alvin Conteh. He is a fragrance educator, expert, and he has a business called Excluscent, and it just focuses on all things fragrance. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here, Kiana, and we're going to have some fun today. We're going to talk about fragrances, and I'm going to try to provide some information that a lot of people don't realize about fragrances and just the entire fragrance industry. So I'm excited to be here.
So for students who may not know, what is fragrance, and how did this become your passion?
All right, that is a fantastic starter question. First off, fragrance was originally created by the Egyptians around 3000 AD, and it is, 3000 BC. And fragrance was actually coined by the Romans, actually the term perfume. And perfume in Latin is defined or translates to through smoke. So that is what perfume is, where the name perfume came from. So my passion or my background in fragrance, it starts being a kid, being in my mom's backyard and walking around and smelling the backyard, smelling things like hyacinth, smelling things like evergreen, just the smells of outside. And I've always had extremely sensitive nose, and I've always had a strong scent memory. And when I say scent memory, I can smell a fragrance one time and for some reason be able to remember that fragrance and how it smells. So I've always been that little kid, always been that guy who has been the fragrance guy. You know, the first fragrance that I ever received as a gift was from my sister, and it was Tiffany for Men. And I received that, I think, my freshman year of high school. And ever since then, I just started collecting, I started researching, I started wanting to learn more. And I always wanted to be that guy who smelled different. I didn't want to smell like the masses. So that's always been a motivator for me in terms of my passion and just learning more and eventually starting my business.
So what does fragrance mean to you? Do you think it's just a part of your superpower that you have like a very sensitive nose? And why are you on a mission to have people have such an excitement about it, kind of similar to how you do?
First off, to me, fragrance is art. Fragrance is olfactory art. That's how I define it. I think that's how it should be looked at. You know, I come from an artistic family. My brother is a very successful and talented visual artist. And one of the top questions I always had growing up as a kid was, you know, your brother paints, do you paint? And I don't paint, but I've always tried to figure out what my artsy side or what my artistic talent is. And I think it came back to fragrance. So fragrance to me is subjective. Such as art. Fragrance also is, I want fragrance to be looked at in the same vein as fashion. You know, people don't wear the same type of clothing or wear the same shirt or same jeans every day. You know, fragrance has a variety of different classifications. One thing about fashion, fashion has stylists. Fragrance should have stylists. So I want people to look at fragrance the same way they look at fashion. That's one of my goals and one of the reasons that I educate.
Can you tell us something about about fragrances, the industry, or its history that the average person wouldn't know?
The first thing that I would think of would be probably one of my pet peeves in terms of fragrance. So the modern colloquialism of fragrances and how they're referred to today, especially when it comes to feminine and masculine fragrances, are male fragrances are referred to as cologne, and female fragrances are referred to as perfume. Mm-hmm. So one bit of information that anytime somebody asks me about fragrance and you know, just some general information, the first thing I tell them is that perfume is basically the name of how strong the fragrance is. So fragrance has different classifications in terms of level of strength of the fragrance. So it starts with cologne, then eau de cologne, then eau de toilette, then eau de parfum, and then parfum. So, and that's based on how much oils are in the fragrance, which makes it strong. So when people ask me, wow, that's a great cologne you're wearing, you know, it's hard for me to say it's a great fragrance, because cologne is not masculine or feminine. It's about the strength or how many oils are in the fragrance.
Why do you think that it has been marketed that way? Is it because they think we're not intellectual enough to understand the levels of fragrance?
I just think it's easy to remember, and it's become, the common terms when people are talking about fragrances: cologne for men, perfume for women. So I just think it's become, slang for fragrance. So it's easy to remember, and it gives you that immediate justification, or you know exactly what somebody's talking about when they say cologne or when they say perfume. So I think it's just that simple. It's easy and simple for people to remember.
Where are some of the unusual places you've gone in search of fragrance?
Wow, let's see. I'm going to start close to home. I live in the Atlanta area, and you'll be surprised at certain places or some places you can go to that you think you would find a rare fragrance, and you'll find it. I was way up in North Georgia, actually doing traveling to Tennessee, and I stopped at this little small strip mall, like way out in the middle of nowhere, and they had some fragrances behind the counter at one of these small stores. And this store carried a couple of extremely rare and discontinued fragrances that I say today's value are probably worth at least $300 a bottle. And this was in just a little mom and pop store in North Georgia. So it could be, I've been and visited fragrance stores in Paris. I've had the opportunity to visit Australia. I've been all over the United States, and I'm the type of person that anywhere I go, I'm going to find somewhere to smell something. So that's always been my thing. So, part of my job is traveling. So if I'm going to Seattle, I'm going to a fragrance place in Seattle, LA, the same thing.
About how many bottles of fragrance would you say that you have in your collection?
I do not believe in hoarding, but I have some fragrance friends who have hundreds of bottles. Like wow. They have a room where they carry their fragrances, where they keep their fragrances. I would never be that person. I'm not a hoarder. I don't believe in being controlled or ruled by your possessions. So I usually have around 15 to 20 in my possession, which is wow. a lot for most people.
Yeah.
But I usually keep about 20 in my personal collection.
That's amazing. So are there people that actually collect fragrance? Like that's their hobby?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. A message board that I've been a member of for years called Base Notes, basenotes.com. Mm-hmm. And I've been on there probably since about 2003. And it's a message board for fragrance enthusiasts. So people come on to discuss fragrances, to talk about fragrance notes. We buy, sell, and trade on this website. And I know guys who, and women who have collections that are worth, I'd probably say tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars. This is their thing. This is what they collect.
Can you define what a note is for those of us who do not know what a note is when you talk about that in terms of a fragrance?
Well, a note basically is an ingredient in a fragrance. So whether it be rose, whether it be civet, whether it be musk, whether it be tulips, just basically a fragrance note. Usually most fragrances are going to have a variety of notes. Fragrances are divided into three types of notes. You have your top notes, your mid notes, and then you have your base notes. So a note basically is an ingredient that's used to compose a fragrance.
So a top note versus a base note, how does that define the ingredient? Is it more if it's a top note or more if it's a base note?
Great question, Kiana. Usually fragrances are designed where the top notes, that's the first thing that you smell when you spray it. So top notes usually are going to be very fleeting. They're not going to last maybe no longer than, I would say, 10 to 15 minutes for the top notes.
Okay.
And then once a fragrance gets to its top notes, it gets to its mid notes. And mid notes can last, I would say, anywhere from 15 minutes to 45 minutes. And then finally, you get to what's called the base notes, or the bottom notes. And the bottom note is what the fragrance is going to smell like throughout however long the fragrance lasts. So, bottom notes can last up to several hours, 6 or 7 hours. So one thing I tell people who are testing or who are sampling fragrances, remember that a lot of times when companies create fragrances, they put all the money, they put the budget in the top notes. Because just think about when you go in the store and somebody sprays a card and they hand it to you.
Mm-hmm.
9 times out of 10, most people are making that decision by smelling the top notes.
That's true.
That's what companies do. Companies say, we're going to kill them with the top notes. We're going to knock them dead with the top notes. And then by the time they get home and smell it, they're like, this does not smell like what it smells like in the store. That's because it's dried down. Mm-hmm. So I always tell people, make sure when you're testing, and we'll talk about sampling a little bit later, make sure you give appropriate time to really test what that fragrance is going to smell like when it hits the bottom notes.
What are some of the strangest fragrances you've had a chance to smell?
That is, I'll smell some weird ones. I did a workshop a few months ago here in Atlanta, and there are a couple of weird ones that I always go to, but to me, one of the most fun things about fragrance is that it's just totally subjective. There is a fragrance by a company called Serge Lutens. It's called Musk's Kubla Khan. And I always let people smell this fragrance because to me, it smells like pure, unadulterated BO. It is horrible to my nose. But one of the crazy things is that when I let people in my workshop smell it, a lot of people loved it, especially a lot of the women. It's very, very musky, very, very, in my opinion, strong. Mm-hmm. So it goes back to fragrance being very, very subjective. To me, it's a stinker. I would never wear it. But some people, to another nose, it smells totally different. Now, there's another fragrance that I definitely want to make sure I highlight. It's by a company called Etat Libre. I think it's pronounced Etat Libre d'Orange. And the fragrance is called Secretions Magnifique. Mm. And that is, if you want to smell something that's shocking, that. I promise you. That fragrance was designed to shock you. It's supposed to smell like blood. It's supposed to smell like copper. It's supposed to smell like salt. Wow. And I've smelled it several times. To me, it's disgusting, but it is one of the company's best sellers. So you just never know what people, somebody's trash is somebody else's treasure. So I smell some weird things, and those probably are top 2 of some of the weird fragrances I've ever smelled.
For students who would like to know more about pursuing a career in the fragrance industry, what resources would you suggest they take a look at?
I would definitely say because there are a lot of different options in working in the fragrance industry. You can become a perfumer or what's called a nose. You're the person who actually creates or designs a fragrance. You can become a perfume assistant. Probably the top fragrance schools in the world are based in France, specifically in Paris, Versailles well. So a lot of students go over there to study the art of becoming a nose or a fragrance creator. A lot of students who end up becoming noses go and get college degrees in chemistry. Because a lot of times, most times today, fragrances are created in labs. Fragrances are created by people who know how to manipulate molecules and create the smell of something without actually using the notes of the actual smell. So a lot of fragrances today are used in labs, and that's done for a variety of reasons. First of all, it's cheaper. It is cheaper to create the smell of sandalwood in the lab than it is to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on maybe a couple 100 pounds of sandalwood. Mm-hmm. So it is much cheaper to create that molecule in the lab. So there are people who learn how to do this, and companies hire them to create those. So being a nose, being the chemist, obviously the sales and marketing side. So I know that the Fashion Institute in Manhattan has a fragrance marketing degree program. So learning how to create the marketing or create the story of a fragrance, because companies have hire marketing teams to create a story for a specific fragrance they're getting ready to launch. So there are a variety of different areas that you can check out, whether it be becoming a nose, whether it become working in marketing, working in sales, or being on the chemistry side of the fragrance industry. So there's a lot of different ways.
So with Excluscent, there are a couple of different things you do with your company. First, you serve as an educator, which is some of the things that you talked to us already about, giving us the background and understanding of fragrance. But you also serve as a consultant. I would say that's akin to being a fragrance stylist of sorts, correct? And what does that mean to you, and how does that kind of play out, being a stylist when it comes to fragrance for your clients?
Well, it gives me the opportunity to use what I've experienced and take in the information from the client and getting the idea of what their personal style is and guiding them to a fragrance that becomes their own, that becomes their so-called signature fragrance. You know, in terms of being a consultant, one of the first things I'll do if somebody comes to me and says, I'm looking for a special fragrance, I'm getting married, or I'm going to this special event, the first thing I do is I have them complete my fragrance questionnaire. So it gives me an idea of what their style is, how they dress, how they carry themselves, what fragrances they've worn in the past, what's currently in their collection, what they would like to try. So I want to get an idea of who that person is and what their personal style is before I select samples that I think would be a good fit for them. Now, in terms of being a stylist, you know, I work in the area of what's called niche perfumery. And niche perfumery, a lot of people look at it as being high-end. Obviously, it's going to be more expensive. But what niche perfumery, what the bare bones, what it really means is it's available in less stores. So niche perfumes are going to be available. You know, you have niches like, I guess Le Labo would be considered a niche perfume company. There are hundreds of different niche perfume companies, and I got a couple of them I'm going to highlight once we come to the end. So I work in niche perfumery. I want to recommend something that somebody is not going to, you're going to meet somebody and they will never have experienced that fragrance before. So that is the type of, the area of fragrances that I recommend to my clients.
So would you say that your goal ultimately is to make people memorable? Is that what you're trying to do with scent, you know, for the most part?
I definitely think so. Making people memorable. One of my favorite perfumers, a gentleman by the name of Maurice Roussel, a legendary nose. One of his famous quotes is, "Your fragrance is your scented slogan." So to me, one of the biggest insults that I can get is if I walk in somewhere and somebody says, "Wow, you smell great. You smell just like so-and-so. You smell like my dad," or "You smell like I've smelled this 100 times before." You know, that's not my goal. I want to smell good, but I want to stand apart from the crowd. And, you know, people, like I said, it goes back to people should look at fragrance the same way they look at fashion. You know, you shouldn't want to look like and wear everything that everybody else is wearing. Apply the same thing to fragrance. You want to stand out, be an original, you know, be a maverick. And that's the mindset I take for my personal fragrances and then why I recommend fragrances.
So I think we're at the portion now where you're going to do a little show and tell.
Okay, all right, let's do it. First, I'm going to go over probably a couple things in my collection that I want to highlight. The first fragrance that I'm going to show, and this is probably one of the most popular fragrances you have in niche perfumery. I don't know if you can see it that well, but the company, this is by Creed. Creed is probably one of the most known niche fragrance companies. This fragrance is called Green Irish Tweed. This is the first niche fragrance that I ever purchased. I probably bought a bottle of this probably in 1995, 1996. And this is my go-to. This is my spring, summer go-to. When I don't know what I want to wear and I just want to spray something on, walk out of the house and smell extremely good, this is what I wear. Creed Green Irish Tweed. Smells like green, smells like fresh meadows. It smells like spring. So this is one of my favorites. Second one I'm going to show is, and this is, a lot of people don't know about this one. I don't know if you can see the bottle, but it's by a company called Rainier Perfumes, and the name of the perfume is called Delirious. This is extremely difficult to find. Most people will classify as a floral. The reason I love this fragrance is that you can wear it all year. It's probably the best for the spring, but I love the smell of hyacinth. It is very dewy, it's very green, it's very fresh, and it just reminds me of being back home where I'm from Fort Valley, Georgia. It just reminds me of being outside of my mom's backyard. So, you know, one thing I tell people about fragrance is that fragrance is the most powerful memory. You can smell something and it can transport you to baking with your grandmom or doing something with your grandfather or just a memory that maybe you forgot about, and fragrance can immediately transport or report you to that place. And the last one I want to show, and this is one of my personal favorites, this is by a fragrance company called Kerosene. This is actually an independent perfumer. His name is John. The fragrance is called Blackmail. This is one of my favorite fragrance companies, Kerosene Fragrances. Check them out. And this is a great fragrance for the winter and for the fall. Very, very smoky. I love smoky stuff. So it smells smoky, but it's sweet at the same time. So I get a lot of compliments when I wear Blackmail by Kerosene. So, and just the last thing I want to go over was how to sample a fragrance. So I got some test strips. And what I want to tell people is, first of all, when you're going to a department store and you're spraying bottles, if you're just sampling, you're not too serious, obviously you want to sample on paper. So you want to spray the end of the scent strip. I don't know if you all can see this.
You can see it.
But you want to spray the end, and you want to give it, I'll say, a good 30 seconds to let it diffuse and let it saturate into the strip. And once it does that, the main thing you want to remember is you do not want the strip to touch your nose, because you're trying to sample more fragrances and you have the actual fragrance on your nose. Everything you smell thereafter is going to smell like the first thing you sprayed.
Okay.
So you just want to hold it maybe a couple inches from your nose and just, enjoy the experience. Think about what it smells like and just enjoy the experience of the fragrance diffusing from the paper. And secondly, if you are seriously, if you go into the store and you're like, I want to buy something, number one recommendation, make sure you test it on your skin. Not test on paper and then expect it to smell the same way on paper that it's going to smell on your skin. So make sure you spray it. If you find you have 2 finalists, spray those on the area on your skin that is unscented. Hopefully it doesn't have any lotion on there. Spray it. What I usually do, if I go to the mall, I'll spray it. I'll walk out of the department store, walk across the mall for about 20, 30 minutes, and then smell it. And that's going to give you an idea of what it's going to smell like once you get home and once it's gotten to those base notes. So those are my main tips for sampling. Make sure that just enjoy it, but make sure if you're about to make a purchase, sample on your skin. That's the number one tip I can provide.
I have a question from one of the audience members. Is there an expiration date to fragrances?
That is often debated. What I've read and what I've learned, and I've taken several perfume classes and spoken with noses. If you want your fragrance to last, the number one thing, there are 2 things that you need to do. First of all, you need to keep it in a cool area, and you need to keep it in an area with a little sunlight, because sunlight can break down the chemical compound of your fragrance. So keep it in a cool area. I know a lot of fragrance collectors, a lot of my friends, they purchase the little small refrigerators. They keep their fragrances in those small mini fridges. And if you do that, most people are not going to do that. But if you keep it in a low lit place that's very cool, fragrance can last for years. I've seen Chanel fragrances. I've seen different fragrances from the 40s and 50s last and smell just as good as they did decades ago, because they were well taken care of. So, don't let anybody tell you that a fragrance is only going to last 2 years. If you keep it in your glove compartment in your car where it's 110 degrees, yeah, it's going to break down. But if you keep it in a low lit place that's very, very cool, low temperature, man, it's going to last for years.
I have a follow-up question. I know before we got on, I showed you a fragrance that I purchased when I was in Milan for my mom, and you told me to look at the bottom of the box. And can you explain to people why you had me look at the bottom of the box and how we can use that as kind of an identifier for some other things we may like?
Well, a lot of companies, and the reason I asked you for that, because you gave me the name of the fragrance company, but I saw the name of the fragrance, and what's the name of that fragrance again?
It's called Moresque.
And the name that's listed near the bottom of the bottle.
Jamanisha.
Okay.
Jasminisha.
Jasminisha. So as soon as you said that, the first thing I realized is that I guarantee you that's a jasmine fragrance. with them using the name, and that type of fragrance is going to be classified as what's called a solar floor. Solar floors are types of floral fragrances that mainly use one type of floral note throughout the fragrance. So I guarantee you, if I smelled it, the first thing that I'm going to smell in that fragrance is going to be jasmine, just with the jasmine in the name of the fragrance. So fragrances are classified in a variety of different categories. You have florals, you have aquatics, you have fougères, you have orientals, different types of fragrances. So probably my bit of advice is that, like I said, I keep going back to the fragrance thing and the fashion thing. You're not going to wear what you would wear to a pool party to a black tie event. Look at your fragrances the same way. So if I'm going to, hang out outside with some friends, go have a beer, what have you, I'm probably going to wear something light, something laid, probably a citrus. If I'm going to a special event, I want something that's going to be a little stronger. I'm going to wear something a little more woodsy, something more distinct. So think about the environment that you're going to when you select your fragrances. That's extremely important. Look at your fragrance collection the same way you look at your wardrobe.
So where can people learn more about the work that you do and your services, and how they can follow you and maybe ask follow-up questions about, things that they want to pursue in the industry, in the fragrance industry rather?
Come visit my website. My website is excluscent.com. So it's EXCLUSCENT, excluscent.com. You can follow me on Instagram at Excluscent. I send out various information about my events via my website. You can join my mailing list. Visit my website. You can see the services I provide. Like I said before, if you're looking for a special fragrance for an event, you're trying to give a gift of fragrance, you're trying to just sample something new and add something new to your collection. Visit my website, and I can help you in that area. I've one thing that I really enjoy doing. I've recommended fragrances for weddings. One thing or a new trend that you're seeing more and more today is shared fragrances or unisex fragrance, or a couple wearing the same fragrance. And I get that a lot from weddings. They want to smell. They want to wear the same fragrance as I guess, a symbol of being united. So that's a trend that's occurring in the fragrance industry. So check me out, excluscent.com, and follow me on Instagram at Excluscent.
Lastly, what is the best piece of career advice that you would give to your younger self?
Probably don't be afraid to be yourself. If you have an interest that's different from what most of your friends have, don't be scared to pursue it. And don't be scared to explore. I grew up in a small southern town. I'm a fanatic about sports. I played football growing up, but I always had varied interests. I came from a very artsy family. Like I said, my brother is a visual artist. My sister paints. She sews. She does a lot of artsy type things. So don't be afraid to explore, things that you like. And one of the worst things about schools today is that they're taking, art programs out of the schools. And I can definitely say that I know from my brother, one of his biggest mentors growing up was his high school art teacher. So, go for it. Don't just keep yourself from doing something just because it's not popular. Don't be afraid to pursue your interests and just be who you are. And that'll be the biggest thing that I would say to my younger self. Go for it. Life is too short. Go on that trip. Go see that player. Go hear that band. Go experience things. That's a welcome part of life.
Thank you so much for that advice. I have one quick question before we wrap it up. What are some of your favorite new releases?
Wow, that is a great question. I will say, I'm a huge fan of the Clive Christian line. I'm not going to say it's a new release, but I will say fragrances that I've recently purchased that I love. Clive Christian 1872 is something that I love, a very fresh, clean fragrance. There's a Russian fragrance company called Zerjov. Xerjoff. Makes some of the, in my opinion, the best citrus fragrances ever created. They have a fragrance called Kobe, like Kobe Bryant. It's a very strong and beautiful neroli fragrance. They also have a fragrance called Neo, like N-I-O. That is a wonderful citrus fragrance. So I'm a big fan of Xerjoff. And a lot of people think I just work with or I just recommend fragrances for men. No, I don't. I've worked with female clients before, and you know, I look at fragrance as being genderless. You know, one thing I want to leave everybody with is if it smells good, wear it. Wear it. You know, don't be intimidated if it's marketed to men or marketed to women. I've met many women who wear male marketed scents, and they smell fantastic on them. So if this smells good, wear it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your amazing passion with us. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and catch us back here again in Quarantine Break on Friday. Have a great afternoon.